Facilitating remote teams. Is there a difference between that and doing it in person? Well, yes and no. Facilitation is facilitation. At the end of the day, your role is to ensure that people are engaged, that they're talking about the stuff that matters, that everybody has an opportunity to talk. And in that, it's very similar. But I'm sure, as we've all been pushed remote these days, you've found that the engagement is lacking. Hi, my name is John McCracken. I'm a Certified Scrum Trainer with Scrum Alliance. I'm the managing partner at Agile Centre, and I've been in the Agile and Scrum world for over 20 years now. And for me, this is the problem. Okay, that this is the real issue we have with remote working. Okay? It's incredibly difficult to not only get people to engage, but maintain that engagement when you're in person. Never mind when people are at the other end of webcams with all the other things going on their screen. And I'm sure, like me, you've seen people who just disappear into their email in a meeting. Now, how do we pull those people out? Right. Actually, we go back to the Facilitator's Toolbox. Right. We have to work harder. We have to put more energy in. We have to plan better. So when it comes to facilitating remote teams, make sure you've got ways to break up the rhythm, catch people, grab their attention again, draw them back into the conversation, because you are competing with email, with Slack, with Teams, whatever it is that's also on their screen. Right? How do we do that? Personally, I enjoy asking questions. I enjoy using interactive exercises, breaking people into small groups, letting them go and explore things, because it's very hard to hide in a small group. If there's only 3 or 4 of you and one of them is reading their email, it stands out. Right? So I use a lot of the tools that I would use in person, but I'm using them for different reasons. Right? I'm thinking, whenever I'm planning a meeting that we're going to be doing remotely, how do I keep people engaged? How do I keep them focused on the task at hand? And it's hard. I'm not going to pretend this is easy. I'm not even going to pretend I have all the answers, because I don't. Do people drift off in training courses? Do I see them get sucked into whatever's going on in their world of work at that moment? Yes, I do. Okay? And I think to some extent we have to accept that. When I think about this, and when I sat down, first training online, this only happened for me back in 2020, and I had to sit down and think about it. It makes me think of a conversation I had years ago about raising children, and that devil that is the screen, the TV, and all the research saying it doesn't matter how good a parent you are, unless you cut them off completely, you're never going to win. Did my kids start talking and using American words? Yes, they still do, and they're, the youngest are nearly teenagers, because I can't beat that. TV's there. The American influence in TV is throughout it. And it's really, really difficult to keep away from it. And what does this have to do with facilitating remote teams? Well, it's the same thing. You can't defeat it. You can't beat all of the other distractions that are designed by experts in interfering with somebody's way of working. And don't be mistaken, that Slack app, that Teams app, is designed to get their attention, because it's a way of communicating, and they want you to be using their way of communicating, right? All the time. So they want to pull you back in and pull you back in and pull you back in. So when we're facilitating teams, what I've done is I accept it. I acknowledge it. Okay? So as part of the working agreements, when we're establishing the rules for this meeting, I will just call it out and say, look, you're going to get distracted. Your email is going to go off. So if you can, close it. Your Slack or your Teams messenger is going to go off. So if you can, close it. But if you can't, and you get distracted, okay, there's no judgment, but I might message you, I might ask you a question to just draw you back, just help you. And if you recognize it yourself before anybody's called you out, just try and let it go and come back to us and join back in. Right? This may feel a little defeatist. I've talked to some people and they're like, yeah, but you've got to, I can't reach down the web camera and grab them and shake them and tell them. And in person, I'm not allowed to do it as much as maybe I would have liked at times. Okay? I've got to find ways. So be strong, call it out, say, John, you don't seem to be with us. Is there something more important? And occasionally they might say yes. Okay, there are more important things in the world than your meeting. Maybe this instance is one where whatever they're dealing with is more important. And for me, I'm a great believer in the law of mobility coming out of open space technologies. If you're not adding and receiving value, go where you are. And I would extend it to, if you could be adding more value elsewhere, maybe that's where you should be. So if I have somebody who is distracted and is dealing with something that's more important, I will be quite honest and I'll say, okay, if you need to be somewhere else, go be there. We would love to have you back. If you can wrap it up and you can come back into the meeting, good. If you can't, let's work out how to catch up afterwards. But let them go. Let them go and do what's more important to them so that you and everybody else in that meeting can stay focused on what is important to you. This isn't a special thing for remote teams. This is true throughout. I've just found it becomes more pressing in the remote world because you're easier to access. Back when we all worked in offices and we didn't have to worry about webcams, to pull you out of a meeting, somebody had to put their head in the meeting and say, "Oi, John, can you join me?" And then there'd be a step outside and a quick chat to work out, do I join you or do I go back in the meeting? And then we would go on with whatever it was. But everybody knew it was short, sharp, and it was dealt with. As a remote facilitator, dealing with people dotted all over the place, draw it out. Raise it up as part of your working agreements. Say, I'm going to call you out. I'm going to be honest. It isn't judgment because I know that we all have it. I know that it might be important. And if it is, take it as permission to politely excuse yourself and go and deal with the important stuff. And we would love to have you back. And for me, this is one of the things that I found work best. All of the tools that come out of facilitation, nearly all of them, work in a remote setting. But it's having that honesty, having that courage even, to ask people if they are engaged, ask them if there is something more important, and being accepting of the fact that there might be something more important and they should go and do that. So for me, facilitating remote teams isn't a special skill, any different to facilitating. It's maybe just being tuned in to the reality that the people at the other end of those webcams have a life going on around them. They have even more competition for their attention, for their time, than traditionally in the room facilitation. Be accepting of it. Don't pass judgment. Trust that the people that you've invited to a meeting to get something done can tell you whether what you're working on now is the most important thing they could be, or if there's something else. And if there is, they should go.